After that, events took place as she had seen many times before. Events she knew so well that they became engraved in her memory. The game never opened, no matter how much she reinstalled it and tried again, and Juyeon continued to struggle in vain until sunset and dawn, in a futile fight. In the end, she flopped onto the bed with a very exhausted face. Trivial game, as hell. Yes. It was natural for it to be described as such, after everything that had been committed there. Juyeon muttered with a broken laugh mixed with tears, filth, and vileness. I don't want it anymore. After she said those words, she remained still for a moment, then raised her hand to cover her face, and small gasps began to leak out of her. Disgusting. They didn't just mess with the story as they pleased. The game doesn't even work. At that moment I realized my premonition. I knew exactly what Juyeon meant, what she was talking about. She continued to cry silently. No matter how hard she tried to hide her features with her hands, her tears poured down her cheeks, soaking her pillow. Then she pulled her hand to her left chest, as if the pain was squeezing her heart. KH. Juyeon curled up like a child, and the cough came back to bite her more harshly than before. What was she thinking? Presepe asked, her eyes filled with wandering as she stared with a face dripping with agony. However, it seemed that only one thought was ruling her, despite everything she had experienced. I have to make sure. Did they really keep Vidar's character as promised in the end? To what extent did they destroy the story more than it was? Then I got it back completely, all the memories that had been erased before. Juyeon has spent a life without a family, struggling alone. The pain that was destroying her heart day after day without interruption. The many medications she used to swallow as if it were an inevitable daily habit. Then, and what her death looked like in the end. The coughing had finally stopped. I have to make sure, Juyeon muttered as she squeezed out the last of her strength. I have to. And suddenly. Notice, preparations for running the game have been completed. The sparkle of the laptop screen was reflected in Presepe's violet eyes. Even that obnoxious, boring window, the notification window, has reappeared. Notice, the game will start running now. And so, that was what had been forgotten before. That was the last remaining memory of Juyeon. Presepe. Fenric's breathy voice brought her consciousness back to reality. Your face. Presepe looked as if she would lose consciousness and fall at any moment. Her skin, which used to be so white, was now pale to the point of blue, and her round forehead was covered with beads of cold sweat. Her body was trembling non-stop, as if she had been shocked intolerably. Was it because? Fenric's gaze automatically turned to the heads of Dietrich and Siegfried, rolling on the ground. In the end, from the beginning, Presepe's hard lips moved slowly, and her voice came out hoarse, as if it was collapsing. There was nowhere to go back to. What? So, this was really the case, for me, from the moment Presepe was in the game and set foot in this world, there was no longer a world to which she could return, or to which she had to return. In fact, she was already dead, so how could she leave the game? Even if I left, it would only mean real death. For there was no place left where Presepe, or Juyeon, could breathe and live, except this world. All the efforts she made, and all the attempts she made to achieve the dream of returning to reality, it was ultimately useless. She kept trying, not knowing that she was dead, or perhaps forgetting that, but all that effort was meaningless. She wanted to know how the designer company had messed up and changed things, but she didn't expect to have to experience it all herself, moment by moment. She also remembered how much she had suffered when she thought, maybe it would be better not to leave the game, but to stay here with the Duke. Presepe. Fenric noticed that something was wrong. Despite the chaos, he was looking at her with a worried face. To her surprise, she did not feel any despair or frustration at the impossibility of returning to reality. On the contrary, I felt comfortable. Yes, no matter what happens, this place has become her new reality in which she must live. Perhaps it was because she had already made up her mind to stay by Fenric's side. Then there was no Fenric in reality. There was no one to look at her, talk to her, or worry about her. In her life as Juyeon, she was completely alone. Alone to the point of chilling. Until the last moment of her life. And that overwhelming feeling of loneliness, she didn't want to experience it again. Then she closed her eyes tightly and opened them again. His Majesty is dead. Knight Commander. The Forbidden Forest was in complete chaos. The sudden death of Dietrich and Siegfried caused confusion among the soldiers, while the monsters continued their attack relentlessly. But Presepe's eyes only turned to one place. 2. Vidar, who was standing in front of her, stared at her from above. In his hand, he held a memory book. A book that radiates a frightening, ominous flash, the likes of which you have never seen before. It looked like it was about to crumble into dust if touched by a hand. It was as if the fire had consumed it from the inside, as holes appeared in it through which rays leaked. Does this mean that the regime's last line of defense has collapsed? It didn't take long for Presepe to realize the truth. The death of Atari Hannon, Noah Duvern, and Evan. And now, even Dietrich and Siegfried are dead. This was not hidden from Vidar. He was staring at the memory book with his lifeless blue eyes. In the end, the key to breaking the system was the death of all characters who were given setting values. Except for Presepe and himself. So what's next? What will he do now? Unfortunately, Vidar still has some power left behind. As long as the book doesn't completely fade away. As long as his strength wasn't completely gone. So I was just waiting. The sound of memories of that old conversation that brought them together touched her ears. When he said to her, "I waited for you to appear. I waited for thousands of years alone. But, was it just because I became like this according to the settings? So what if the memory book disappears? Have all setting values lost their meaning? Once you are freed from the shackles of this world, will I still love you? Or, as you repeatedly said, I will stop caring about you because the settings are gone? Will I be free? Free from everything? Or will I leave you too, and continue to flounder in greater torment?" Blackness covered Vidar's blue eyes. That was exactly when. "Watch out!" Fenric shouted in a low voice, then rushed to embrace Presepe, who was sitting on the ground. Eagerly, he looked around him. Ah! While she was in his arms, Presepe heard the screams of humans and the howls of beasts. She instinctively raised her head. She saw the sky collapsing. Like a broken clay toy. The fall was not limited to the sky alone. As the memory book glowed more and more and scattered with the wind, the ground beneath them also began to collapse. The soldiers and monsters were screaming in pain, resisting desperately, but it wasn't long before their noise faded. And everything disappeared as if it had never existed. A loud bang, again and again, and then, nothingness. Total darkness fell everywhere. There are only 3 left. Vidar, Fenric, and Presepe.